So 2 days to go, no passport. 1 day to go, the next day we're leaving, no passport. Okay, we told God we need to have this a week early. It didn't come. We told God we needed to have it 5 days before our flight. It didn't come. We told God we needed to have it a day before our flight. There's no way we can make it without a day's notice. And I'm saying to Sandy, do I go down the day of our flight to try and get your passport? All right, this story is about, 1990. Actually started in 87, 88. My aunt and uncle were able to visit China with their spouses. My aunt wrote a book about my grandparents working in China in the 30s and 40s before World War II. And then in 1990, the leaders of the area where my grandparents worked in China sent an invitation to my aunt and uncle to come visit them in China and bring all the family. And they said, we're going to put up a monument to honor your grandfather, your father, to my aunt and uncle, because he died for the people of Shanxi, China. It's the province of Shanxi. And so we all were given notices that we were all invited to come back and visit my grandparents' working area. And I'd grown up hearing the stories of my grandparents working in China. My grandfather died in 1939 at the beginning of World War II from a Japanese bombing attack. And wow, this was exciting. So I said, well, I can't afford it, but I'd love to go. And my aunt said, well, I've written a book, We Signed Away Our Lives. Look it up on Google or someplace. Get the book, We Signed Away Our Lives. It's the story of my grandparents in China. But the proceeds from that book is what my aunt said, I will pay for you to go because of all my father's descendants, you're the only one doing missionary work at this time. So we were missionaries in Indonesia. So my aunt paid for my ticket to go to China. But then we had twins. Davin and Denise were like 2.5 years old, 3 years old. And I was going to go to China and my wife couldn't go with me. She had to take care of the kids. But I knew if I went to China, I needed my wife with me. Because who knows, this was just an opportunity of a lifetime. So it turns out Sandy wrote a letter to her parents who were missionaries in Taiwan, who happened to have two medical doctors. They were a husband and wife team from Sydney, Australia, who were working at their hospital in Taidong, Taiwan. And a tradition in their family, at dinner table, they would read the letters from their kids. Sandy didn't know it at the time, but Frank and Sally Dennis, Sandy's mom and dad, opened up Sandy's letter and just read it out loud to the people at the table. Well, this doctor and the husband and wife doctor team, they heard the letter. They contacted their church in Sydney, and the church in Sydney said, Sandy has to go with Finn to China for this awesome event of seeing where his grandparents worked and meeting with the officials. So their church sent in the money to cover Sandy's ticket. Well, the problem was Indonesia did not have diplomatic relations with China. So I had gotten a second passport because my passport already had an Indonesian visa in it. So I needed a second passport that would only have a China visa in it because the Indonesians wouldn't renew my Indonesian visa if they saw a passport with a Chinese visa in it. Don't ask me to explain any further on that. I don't know what we did with Sandy about a second passport, but we sent her passport to the States, to Los Angeles, to the Chinese consulate in Los Angeles to get a visa put in it. And in that application, they said, do you want this registered mail or not? And we thought, passport? Yeah, registered mail. The problem was it took like 3 times longer for the passport to come back because at every postal check, it had to be reconfirmed that the passport was there. And so we were getting notifications of where it was, but we bought tickets. We had to get to another city that was an hour and a half away from our city in Central Java. We were in Solo. We had to get to Jogja. But there was no passport. So do I go by myself? Do I wait for Sandy's passport? So 4 days before we're supposed to fly out of Jogja, I started going down to the post office in Solo. And I talked to the postmaster or one of the leaders in the post office, and I said, when do you get your mail in here? Because I'm waiting for my wife's passport, which we cannot travel without that passport. And he goes, well, we get it in like 4 or 5 in the morning. And I said, can I go back and see where the bags come in? And he said, sure. It took me back. He was there. The Indonesians are so gracious and so nice. And he took me back to the back area where they open up the big mail bags and they start sorting. So I saw where it was. And it was obvious that that package hadn't come. So now it's 3 days before we're supposed to leave, and there's still no passport for Sandy. I go down at 4 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, and I meet with the postal guys in their back baggage area. And I help them open up all the mail bags for the whole city. This is a city of 1 million people. It's a lot of mail. And we start going through all the stuff, and I'm helping them with their mail work. And we're talking. Indonesians like to talk and tell stories, so we're having a grand time. But no letter from for Sandy, no package of her passport. So 2 days to go. I do the same thing. No passport. 1 day to go. The next day we're leaving. No passport. So Sandy and I are having a discussion every afternoon when I get home from the post office saying, okay, we told God we need to have this a week early. It didn't come. We told God we needed to have it 5 days before our flight. It didn't come. We told God we needed to have it a day before our flight. There's no way we can make it without a day's notice. We were to fly at like 12 noon the next day. And I'm saying to Sandy, do I go down the day of our flight to try and get your passport? There's no way, because not only do I need to get her passport, we have to pack our car and get an hour and a half down the road to another city for the flight. Oh, and by the way, we have to get an exit entry permit from the Indonesian Immigration Bureau before we can leave. Because Sandy can maybe leave, but she can't come back into the country if she doesn't have the exit entry permit. Sandy's question was, how do we understand God's timing? What is God saying? Can he do it in 1 day? And I'm thinking, there's no way. But in the end, Sandy and I both agreed, okay, we give it a try. I go down at 4:30 in the morning to the Solo post office, and the guys are there. Hey, good to see you again. You know, they got to know me, and we're connecting, and we're having a good time. We're going through all the stuff. And at one point, one of the guys holds up this manila envelope, and he goes, Pop Bin, Mr. Finn, is this yours? It was Sandy's passport. And I go, no, that's not mine. Just throw down the other stuff. And when he's not looking, I leaped at him. I grabbed it out of his hands. And he's laughing. He knew it right away. It was Sandy's passport. And he knew I knew. But that's an Indonesian kind of thing where you play games with each other. And you don't let your emotions show out too quickly. I got it. And I said, thank you guys so much. And I raced home. We didn't have telephones at the time. We lived 9 years in Indonesia without a telephone. We had a CB radio. And I think I maybe called Sandy, pack the car, get the kids ready. I got home, it was like 6:30. At 8 o'clock, the immigration office was going to open. I got down to the Solo immigration office. I got in there and I said, I have my wife's passport. I need an exit entry permit. Can you stamp it in my wife's passport and sign it? And they say, we can do all of that. But the director's not here, so he can't sign it. I said, where's the director? Oh, he's at a ping pong tournament. Oh my gosh, I finally got all this. And he's at a ping pong tournament. And they go, I had made friends with these guys. I would talk to them about their work. I would tell them stories from my life in many different countries around the world. And they go, we're going to call the boss. And say hi to Powder. Hey, Powder, can you say hi to my friends? Yeah. And so they said, we're going to call the boss and see what he says. They called the boss and they go, and the boss said, well, if it's only an exit entry permit, yeah, I'll sign that. Just bring it down to the tournament. So I'm sitting at the immigration office. It's like 9:15 now. They go to the ping pong tournament. The boss signs it. They get back around 9:30. I race home with the passport. Now I got the exit entry permit. I race home with the passport. I pick up Sandy and our two 3-year-old twins. We have an hour and a half to get to Jogja, where our flight is taking off at 12 noon. We get there around 11:15. We race into the airport. We check in. We get our boarding pass. But guess what? We still have our kids in the car. And so we have to go out to the car. We drive to our friend's house, which is about 20 minutes away, drop our kids off, hug them and kiss them and say goodbye. We tell our friends we're going to park the car in the parking lot of the airport and the keys will be under the door. Here's the second set of keys. We race back to the airport. We've already checked our luggage and got our boarding passes. So this is 40 minutes later. We race to the gate and we're the last passengers to climb on the plane. How much time does God need? We tell him all of our expectations. We need a week. We need 6 months. We need this or that. Forget it. God needs 10 seconds. God needs 10 seconds. And he can get done for you what he wants to get done. Careful about putting controls and conditions on God. I have sweated so hard. I have run so hard and found out that God's just laughing. He knows exactly what's going on all the time. A Chinese friend of mine gave me he said it was an old Chinese proverb. I've never found it in Chinese. He said, stop worrying, Finn. He said it's like an Italian gondola that's going down the riverway. And it looks like the prow of the gondola is going to crash into the bridge. And he said the Chinese phrase basically says the idea that don't worry, the prow will make it under the bridge. Maybe by half an inch, maybe by an inch, maybe by a millimeter. We worry so much about time and issues that God's in complete control of. He's in control of everything. Don't worry. If it's going to happen, it's because God made it happen. Great talking with you guys. Thank you.